Hello everyone, and welcome along to a little recap of last weekend's races and a little preview of this weekend's races for RPL and its brand new seasons in the fall to winter time of 2024 to 2025 with the F1 24 seasons we have going on. And today we're going to give you some topics to talk about, mainly ones we want to debate with really the highs and the lows of some of these drivers and teams and academies. If you would like, as well as the viewer, give us your thoughts on some of these topics we're bringing up in the comments section. So I want to start off recapping the weekend, starting with Tier 3. And I want to talk about Polish Hammer first off, just because Drift King crashed intentionally late in the race, causing a safety car, and this is where all the chaos ensued. Polish hit another Mercedes Academy driver after it was Mythic spinning him out of a podium spot, and Drift King made contact with Polish, racing him very aggressively in the opening 10 laps of the race, and he ended up leaving the league after his incidents, Drift King, that he had during the race, self-spin incidents with Polish, and due to the incident he had, he got a season ban. Now, why am I bringing Polish up to this? Well, the big thing about Polish now is Invade has made him aware your seat is maybe under threat. We're going to reevaluate this come the next few rounds, and then we'll make a decision there. The thing for Polish Hammer that I want to talk about is he was coming into the weekend looking for probably a podium, maybe at some point this season probably a win, and did not expect this to be on his bingo card. But for Polish's case, the thing I want to debate is how much longer will he keep that seat, and really, at the same time, should this even be a debate with anything to begin with? Well, I want to look back at the start of Season 2 for a moment with Polish here. A podium to his name, and really bad qualifyings, but better races. The problem for him, and some people compared it to Daniel Kvyat, is he has a lot of pace, but gets extremely unlucky and can't keep himself out of incidents. We saw the same thing happen in Bahrain, but probably the worst of it. He was timed out briefly in the server for, probably saying something he shouldn't. Frustration boiling over. It happens to the best of us. But, like the comparison was mentioned with Kvyat, similar there. Is this the case to where his seat is under threat because of a driver who has a lot of pace and can't seem to complete things? Well, one thing I want to go over before we get to our next topic about Polish is the fact that Polish, in a lot of races last season, even when he didn't get the results, he was always up there and always seemed to have a chance. It was Uriah and Turbo the main threats during Season 2 of Tier 3, but Polish was always right there in the background, and then the second half of the race always fell off and had something happen. Brazil and Miami are the two most notable ones that come to mind. So we know Polish has the pace, but he's just got to get the results, and that's what's going to matter, because if he doesn't start getting those results, his Ferrari seat could go to someone else. And speaking of someone else, I want to talk about what the more impressive thing of the weekend was in Tier 3. Was it Valkyrie's podium for Williams? Beatnik's return, getting a P4 there? F1 Shorts' first top 5 finish? Or was it McLaren's 1-2, their first 1-2 in Tier 3? Well, I'm going to take McLaren's 1-2 out of there just because, really, their only fight after qualifying was Alex Norris, and he bottled the strategy. Not as impressive there, McLaren's 1-2, but congrats to them. They deserve that. F1 Shorts' top 5 on a Haas is very impressive, but when he went from low end of Tier 3 to almost maybe bottom end of Tier 2 pace overnight, I think a top 5 was expected in a crazy race based on what he was doing in Brazil last season. But I'm not going to say it was expected this early and under these circumstances. Plus, he's in a Haas, the 7th best car. Beatnik in a Red Bull Getting P4 is very nice. Second best car, that's probably where it should be, but he was running P10 all race and got lucky with the strategy because of the safety car. Valkyrie's podium is the most impressive thing throughout the whole weekend, and you can't deny that at all. No matter what you want to say about any of the other three, Valkyrie's podium happened for Williams, and this came after a driver who was constantly making stupid mistakes last season. Qualifying ban for retiring on track after already having qualifying ban for penalty points, and then not properly serving in Japan but getting away with that one, finishing P10 for Haas. Now, you're probably thinking P10 for Haas compared to a P5 with F1 Shorts. Why is that different there? Well, F1 Shorts, with a finish like that, he could probably take over Polish's ride if Polish does get demoted because of the antics we talked about. But Valkyrie's podium for Williams may be a one-off, but the fact of the matter is, she did this from a qualifying ban. She did this after a poor last season where she was down and out of it. Abu Dhabi end of season 1 it was, fighting for the win with George. Now, missing out on a win in Abu Dhabi, but a podium and a Williams from a qualifying ban, yeah, that's the most impressive thing of the weekend to me. Valkyrie's podium for Williams. And that's Williams' first podium since last game cycle. And that was their first since the previous game cycle. So the things we're seeing from some of these drivers and crappy machinery, Valkyrie now most notably, as of recent, good stuff. Good stuff. I'm impressed with it. And she did it from a qualifying ban. She didn't do it from starting top 10 or anything like that. So that is my most impressive thing from the weekend with Tier 3. Tier 2 time. Let's recap Tier 2 and give you guys now 2 things to talk about. Polo God's bottle. I want to talk about that first because he was in a Ferrari last season doing absolutely atrocious, and he said it was the car. I can't handle this car is a mess. And then he goes to Bahrain and on the revert strategy fought with George for the victory and was on the same strategy as Night Owl, who almost won the race. For Polo God's case, being in a Ferrari last season to now a McLaren this season and doing better, he's proven he deserves that car. I think at some point at the start of this game cycle, he didn't seem to have it as much. Now he does. But the problem is, this is the old Polo God we saw, bottling it constantly. This is not the Polo God we saw in Haas, where he outperformed the car and got the results. Now that he's in big machinery and actually has a chance for victories, he needs to not bottle it and throw these ones away. The thing is, George is in championship form, and that's impressive as it is. That's a big teammate to go up against. But George is someone to work with. He's not someone to work against. And they already agreed they're going to work together. There's no number 1 there going into the season. So why put so much pressure on yourself to bottle like that? That was probably, of all the victories Polo's had a chance for in RPL, that's probably the worst one he's lost. But I'll tell you right now, you got to be careful looking back at that. Just because that's something that's going to give a driver, I don't know if it will give it to Polo or not, but it will give someone like Polo a lot of motivation to just do better. Someone else who had a lot of motivation throughout the weekend, I would say? Aston Martin. I mean, Tier 2 and Tier 1, we'll get to Tier 1 later, but Tier 2 first. Night Owl having a chance for the victory, losing out on the last lap, and Ardell getting the victory on the first lap, having a great start, and really proving himself now in Tier 2. This was a guy who was bottom end of Tier 2 at the end of Season 12, and even Season 13. And I say bottom end of Season 12 because in Ferrari he was not doing what he should have been. He should have had a podium then. He didn't. Season 13 he was in a Red Bull. Should have had a podium then. He didn't. And then he was racing in Tier 2 last season as a reserve in the Williams and had some okay pace, but he was not anything notable like he was in Bahrain. This was impressive stuff. And now you gotta make the question out there of, will Aston Martin finally prevail and win a Tier 2 race this season? It is possible. They have Night Owl in their lineup. I will not be surprised if that does happen. He's a great driver, Night Owl, but he just cannot lose out to George in the last lap like he has been. And for Ardell's case, this could be a very good comeback if he does get a podium this season. I thought he was going to get a podium at Bahrain, but he didn't. Fell off in the last stint, but that's okay. This is a much better performance than what we anticipated from Ardell. I did not expect him to be contending for the lead of the race to begin with, let alone a podium. So, very big stuff there from the Canadian driver. And Aston Martin never won in Tier 2. A lot of second place finishes. They have a genuine chance of getting that first victory finally this season. I think it might happen. But Ardell, Night Owl, great stuff there, guys, from Aston Martin. I'm very impressed with both of you. F2 time. And first, we're going to talk about the guy who has a qualifying ban out of this weekend. That is Zora. Zora got himself into a lot of trouble throughout the weekend. He got into an incident with Gecko. Then after the race, Jack Miles said in clip submission, Zora, stop crashing into other drivers. That was a big thing mentioned from the league owner. And Zora has a history of this. I gave him a lot of credit when I came back on a commentary and when he came back into the league in Tier 3. A lot of his incidents, besides the one in Zandvoort with Valkyrie, were self-spins and not incidents with other drivers. His racecraft was a lot better. Now that's kind of digressing, and I'm a little bit worried now because he has a qualifying ban, and I'm thinking that we'll know what that's about later in the week, but I'm thinking that's on penalty points. He retired in the pits in both races and had collisions there. He's on thin ice. The debate here that I'm having on this topic now is how much longer will Zora stay in RPL, whether that's due to his own choice or due to an admin choice. He's just got to stop colliding with drivers. He's had some great moments since returning, and I say great moments because he's had qualifying sessions to where he's outperformed the car and got it inside the top 10 in interchangeable conditions, most notably Singapore in Tier 2, and he had that happen one time in Tier 3, I believe in Monza last season. Zora's got a chance to do great things, but he just has to stop crashing with other drivers. If he stops that, he'll be okay. The only other problem he has is pace. He's in a Kick Sauber for Tier 3, so he'll be at the back of the field. Of course, that car's the worst, so, you know, no surprise there. But he's just got to stop crashing with drivers, and he will stay. If he keeps crashing, well, we'll see what happens. And the other thing I want to talk about in terms of Formula 2 this weekend at Silverstone was Egg's return to the podium and return to Formula 2. He was out of Formula 2 for a while because of his driving and antics, and had this happen so many seasons in a row. And this was because F2 allowed back in Season 12 champions to return to the series, and Egg was one of those champions who returned. But Egg won the championship in Season 10, so it wasn't a long while ago, and between Season 10 and 12. But Season 12 onwards, he was causing issues, Egg was, and that led to him being banned from F2. Well, that ban was let up, I believe, for this game cycle. Egg raced again, and then in Jeddah, that's where the issues were caused. 50 seconds of penalties in a row. He got a permaban from F2 for a little bit, and that led to issues there on the F1 side because of that. The admin said you cannot be doing this, and we know what happened. Egg got a chance to return in Baku earlier last season for a one-off, crash in a championship leader Skither, but besides that, I believe after that he realized, alright, I need to not do anything like that, and then I'll be allowed back. And he was allowed back for this season. And he's alongside Luke. In Silverstone, both races he got on the podium. Both races, he returned to the podium. This is his first podium since the F122 game cycle. I gotta give it up for Egg. I really do. This is great stuff, and Titan said he could be a championship contender in our season preview prediction video. This is a possibility now. Skither and Jack are going to be the two favorites, but Egg can put himself as someone who is a championship favorite because of that now. And for Egg's case, that is the most impressive thing from the weekend with F2 in Silverstone. Returning to the podium. He didn't just do it in one race, he did it in both. So Egg, congrats there. Very impressive stuff. And I'm definitely happy to see this because Egg had been waiting a while to get back onto the podium. And like I said, could be an outlier for that championship. I would not be surprised. So, now, our Formula One side of the weekend. Let's talk about things there. We have 2 topics to talk about. There's technically 3, but one goes together. I'm going to start off with the probably less important topic, and that's Gecko. Gecko finished P4 in a V-carb in Bahrain. Now, Reese missed out on the weekend due to issues with loading the game and everything there. It was his birthday. It was not a great birthday present there for Reese. But Hunter got put in the Red Bull. Now you kind of should probably put the debate of, well, should Gecko have got a chance? Well, he would have had the qualifying ban, got to start at the back, tried to recover. Hunter only got to, 11th? Gecko was in a V-carb, got to qualify, made Q3, was not far off a second, actually, or even 4th, for better measure, because I was closer. And he finished P4 in the race in the V-carb. What do we expect now throughout the season from him? Well, I expect him to be the priority Red Bull reserve driver when it comes to Reese or Egg missing races. And if Reese has a dip in performance and actually has a problem of staying consistent and has what happened last season where he gets thrown out of the car, then yeah, I expect Gecko to be put in that ride alongside Egg. You know what Gecko showed me? That last season, with what happened for Gecko in these races, with getting penalties, wrong strategy, and missing out on victories, that it's not impossible for him to win a race this season, assuming he's given that Red Bull chance. Now, I don't expect him to win a V-carb. That should not be the expectation, but the expectation should be consistent points. Also, consistent finishes that put Reese's seat under pressure again. Reese's seat was under pressure last season, if you remember. The swap happened for a little bit with Cookie and TB, and as we know, TB was getting those consistent podiums. If Gecko gets put back in the Red Bull, I expect those consistent podiums. And that's assuming that Reese has that different performance and Gecko still continues to perform well. Gecko has to avoid bad strategies and penalties. If he avoids that, then he finishes in the points almost every single time, assuming he doesn't have a bad race. That's what really the expectation should be for HSR Gecko. And when Gecko was in the Red Bull last time, Zandvoort, before that safety car at the halfway point in Season 10, he was gapping the field by almost 10 seconds. Portimao, he finished behind Cookie by 10 seconds. So I don't think this should be out of the question that Gecko could be getting a Red Bull spot, whether it's through Reese or Egg missing a race, or Reese or Egg, based on performance, having a dip there. And I would expect that more out of Reese now compared to how Egg has been performing so far this game cycle. But Reese does have that victory, last Red Bull winner still, so you never know what could happen. I'm not going to say Reese's dip in performance is guaranteed, but with what previous history shows, it is possible. Now, our last debate of the weekend is probably the best one. Maybe, maybe not. I'm a little biased here. Leo Lund, maybe future esports driver, very impressive Swedish driver. Now, 17 poles, 14 wins in RPL. Can he win in a Williams is the debate, and the other debate is, will anyone stop him? Well, let's start with the fact that can anybody stop him, okay? Qualifying, he was 3/10 clear of the pack. I think Leo Lund's qualifying pace has been immense. He's been on top of it. He's doing really well, and that's going to continue. I think there's even a chance if he shows up to every Grand Prix, he can probably get a pole in all but, let's say, one race. Let's say the Aston's worst track he doesn't get a pole at, and someone pulls off a magical lap. Like Skither in Saudi last season, I think was second for Ferrari. Only less than a 10th off Leo, and the rest of the field was 5/10 or further back. And Leo said he sucked at the start of the season, last season. Okay, fine. But he still was winning races and still was dominant. The big problem for Leo was not being able to pull out of the DRS train, for example, and obviously the key of being patient. That's the only two things that stopped him in any race. We won't see really a lack of DRS trains this season. If anything, we'll probably see more of it. Jack was able to keep him in the DRS train when both them were teammates in the McLaren. So yeah, can anybody stop him? I'm not gonna say no one can stop him, but I'm gonna say the chance of stopping him is a little bit different compared to last season. Now, the other debating question about this, because I said these two go hand in hand, was about can he win in a Williams now? We were talking about this after the Tier 1 race based on what he was able to do in the Aston. Can he get a pole or a front row with the team? Yeah, I think that's actually not out of the question. Even some of the Tier 2 drivers were talking about this as well in separate chats, besides the driver's chat. I'll say this for Leo's case. He very well could get Williams' best qualifying spot. He could get V-Carb onto a pole. They've never had one. Haas into a top 3 in qualifying. They've never had one. Leo could do a lot of things in this league that no one else can, and it's actually very impressive what he has been able to accomplish and do. And as we look into Saudi, I mean, there is a legitimate chance as we get to the end of the season, if Leo clinches the title a round or two or even more early, that he could go to one of these cars and actually try and do something that's not been done before. Only a certain amount of teams have won an RPL, and only a certain amount of teams have gotten pole in RPL. You go to a backmarker car, it's obviously a lot worse compared to McLaren to Aston Martin's deficit in performance, but the question was, can Leo win in a Williams? If there's a chaotic enough race, yes, he can. But if it's a normal race, the only thing you can really expect is pole, and then once the DRS train kicks in, once the tires kick in, Leo might not win in a Williams. He's going to need a lot of luck and a gift on his side in order to do that. The thing for Leo Lund in that aspect is he's doing great things right now. You don't want to kill it right now. You want to wait until the end of the season to try and do something out of the ordinary like that. So can he take a track like Spa or Vegas, their best tracks with straight line speed? Very, very possible. I would say yes. But under normal circumstances, I'm going to say no, he can't. But I'll say he can get a pole with the team. That's where I stand on that aspect for Leo. But I think this debate is not going to stop anytime soon. We've got to see what the other races play out with. It was really only Jack who kept up with Leo at the end of that race in Bahrain last week and kept him in DRS. But Leo was saving so much and in non-ERS, and he even said he could even sweat more. If that's the case, I do think he does get a front row for Williams, probably pole. Win, that's more up for debate than the pole is. Because the races are so different when you have everything within the DRS train, so hey, only time will tell. If Leo does go to a bottom-end car to end the season, I really want to see what he is capable of and what can happen. Because I was talking privately with, like I said, some Tier 2 drivers after the race. And yeah, we do think it's a possibility, and I would love to see come the end of the season, if he wins the title early, if he goes to one of those cars, can he do it? And I'm really interested to see what you guys think now. Do you guys think Leo can win on a different car? Do you guys think Ardell's performance was impressive with Bahrain? Do you think Aston Martin can win and break through? How long do you think Zora will stay? Egg's podium in F2. Valk's podium in Tier 3. Polish Hammer's seat maybe up under for some debate. What do you guys think? Give us your thoughts down below and let us know what you think is going to happen for the second weekend of racing. We already had the opening weekend of racing complete. That's in the history books, and now it's time to put our eyes onto round 2 of the weekend for everything. Starting off Thursday and Friday with Tier 3 and Tier 2 in China, F2s in Spain on Saturday alongside F1 in Jeddah. This should be a fun one, folks. Tune into the action on RPL Formula 1. We cannot wait to see you. It will be a lot of fun to look for. We will see you next time then. Goodbye, and have a good one.